want to take you now to Texas for our other top story that's been developing. This is the kind of thing that happens all the time. You know, college kids get busted in their dorms for drugs. Usually the kids are processed, they're booted out of the cop shop, and then they fall on the mercy of their schools. But at Texas Tech, it was an entirely different story. Police say 19-year-old Hollis Daniels, a freshman at the school, was taken down to the police station last night after they found drugs in his dorm room. But instead of a routine booking, they say Daniels opened fire right there in the campus station, killing Officer Floyd East with a single shot to the head.
Upon entering the student's room, they noticed some drug paraphernalia and other items, so they brought the student down to Texas Tech Police, to the police station, and had a debriefing, which is normal procedure. Sometime during that debriefing, the student pulled a gun and fatally wounded one of the officers. He fled on foot, and later this evening, the suspect was apprehended without further incident.
When the other officers burst into that room, they found a .45 caliber shell casing near the dead officer. Police say his body cam was missing, but that his pistol was still in his holster. In another stunning twist, police say after the shooting, Daniels somehow escaped the police station on foot. Within 2 hours, this was the scene. He was caught. He was brought back in. He had been found on campus with a loaded pistol, and that missing body cam was not far away. I want to bring in Elizabeth Lane, a reporter for CNN affiliate KLBK in Lubbock, Texas. It's just sort of an astounding series of events. What more do we know about this young man, Hollis Alvin Daniels?
Hi, Ashley. You know what? You are completely right. It's the type of thing that you read about, you hear about on the news, and you hope and pray that it would never happen. But again, it was very real, this shooting on campus at Texas Tech last night for people here. And you know what? We have had a lot of our team looking into 19-year-old Hollis Daniels. We're told that he was a freshman at Texas Tech, so had just started a couple of months ago. He's from Seguin, Texas, which is in between Austin and San Antonio, kind of a small town. His dad is actually a former city council member there. We reached out to people for comment, to friends, family members, and they said that this is really unlike him, that he was a good friend. Actually, one even said that he's the type of kid that everybody hoped that their son would be. Ashley?
So let me ask you this, Elizabeth, there were reports that had come in about a young man acting in an erratic way with a weapon. And then there were also reports that came into the police from that young man's own family, saying that they were worried about him being suicidal and that he was armed. It is awfully coincidental all of that is happening at the same time. Do we have a timeline yet on all of that? When did the family call to say our family member's in trouble? And when did that coincide with the complainant calling to say someone in the dorm was acting crazy?
You know what? We had a press conference with Texas Tech earlier today. We're still sort of trying to make sense of the timeline there, as you mentioned. They did tell us that, you know what, they were receiving reports, the campus police department was, that this was a student who was troubled. Then they did mention today in that press conference that the family had actually reached out to the Texas Tech Counseling Center asking for help, saying that he had made some comments about that maybe led them to believe that he might be suicidal. But we have not been able to get a firm idea from them on exactly when that happened. But again, seems like it was a situation where it escalated very quickly and it all kind of came to a fruition last night.
It's just so astounding that the family had even said, you know, that he could be armed. I actually want to play for you, if I can, real quickly, the Texas Tech Police Chief, Kyle Bonath. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it properly, but the police chief talked about this, about the family calling them to let them know what their concerns were. Have a listen.
The TTU Counseling Center advised the Texas Tech Police Department the student's family had called to express concerns that the student might be in possession of a weapon and making comments about suicide.
Are we hearing anything more, Elizabeth, from the alleged gunman's family at this point?
You know what? We have not heard anything further from them. None of the city council members would speak to us today. Everybody's kind of staying tight-lipped, as well as Texas Tech, passing on their condolences to Officer East's family. Of course, there are actually visuals going on as we speak with students, faculty members gathering, and it's sad, but you know what? You've really seen the community come together, and it's unfortunate that it takes a situation like this, but quick response by law enforcement, and we're still waiting to hear more from the family.
A pretty quick response from the press, too. We're just looking at all this video of him sort of being perp walked, brought in the cover of darkness, and yet the cameras are catching his every move. As we look at this, you're in Lubbock, and I think a lot of people watching would wonder whether, university police have the same protections as full-fledged police. But clear this up. This university, Texas Tech, has a full-fledged police department. These are full-fledged officers. They are armed. They are not just sort of safety officers, are they?
No, you know what? From our understanding, they carry in that arrest warrant that we got earlier today, Officer East actually still had his pistol on him at the time, so they are all armed. And you also, what you saw is, a huge response from local law enforcement as well. Lubbock police have actually since taken over the investigation, is what they've told us today. Their SWAT team was there assisting as well, in addition to the Lubbock County Sheriff's Office and EMS crews. So you saw all hands on deck last night. It was honestly the biggest response from law enforcement that I've seen in this town with my own eyes.
So hold that thought for a moment, Elizabeth. I want to bring in criminal justice expert and retired NYPD Lieutenant Darren Porcher. Darren, I mean, when I first heard the story, it was layer upon layer of shock. And then the reality set in that this kid, if what they say is true, pointed a gun at the head of an officer inside a police station and still got away. Can you help me walk through how that could happen?
Well, with police departments, with searches, there are two components. Usually in the street, you have what's referred to as a field search. That field search consists of searching the subject for weapons and contraband, such as drugs or handcuff keys.
So where are they searching? Are they patting you down in the chest,
it's a complete search. It's a complete search. They're going into people's pockets.
How do you miss a gun?
However, just bear in mind, you have a second component to that, which is an administrative search, what occurs in the police precinct. In the police precinct, you have a more comprehensive search, and that details removing items from that individual, such as money, belts, shoelaces, things to that effect.
Turn your pockets inside out. I mean, we've seen this a million times, right? Look at him. He's even in handcuffs. I think this is after the fact, but I would think that if someone complains, there's a guy who's erratic with a weapon, possibly even his family is calling the university to say this as well. I don't know if the police knew about the family at this point. They'd be unbelievably careful with this subject.
Right, so just understand, you have those two mechanisms in place to detect weapons. Now, when this individual, where he was shot, this was in the fingerprint room. It is common practice for a person not to be cuffed in the fingerprint room, because in order for you to fingerprint someone, their hands need to be free. So, generally speaking, police departments always have two officers assigned to fingerprinting an individual. Here, that doesn't appear to be the case.
It's called a briefing room. Yeah, apparently he was in a briefing room. I want to throw up a couple things here, if I can, just as far as what this young man has coming at him, because he's made a bunch of statements, and if we can put them up on the screen, first and foremost, and I think this is serious when it comes to the evidence against Hollis Alvin Daniels. In the warrant for the arrest, Officer East's police body camera was missing, and Officer East's pistol was in his holder. But obviously, as we reported, that camera was found near the freshman. So that is not a good fact. And then there are these statements that he made. Hollis Daniels stated to officers, this is from the warrant, he stated to officers that he was the one who shot their friend. He went on to say, that Hollis Daniels stated he did something, quote, illogical, his words, according to the arrest warrant. And then he also admitted, and I mean, why he would say it, who knows? Only he knows. I effed up. Of course, I've put the edits in. Hollis Daniels immediately stating in the arrest warrant that, that he effed up. Caroline Police, you're a defense attorney. If you're called on this case, what are you going to do with this?
Well, they're not the greatest facts, as you just noted, Ashley, but the only thing I could think of potentially would be a not guilty by reason of insanity defense here. I would like to look into this young man.
He ran away from the police station.
I know.
That's someone who knows something's wrong. If you run away because you're going to get caught, the only reason you could get caught is if something's wrong, which means no insanity defense.
You're right.
Premeditated.
You're right. I mean, I'm just throwing things out there, but I think that this is going to be a case we're not going to see go to trial. He's going to take a deal
because there are no in Texas when you kill an officer
absolutely.
of the law.
It's an aggravated assault.
So are you seeing this as this kid has no shot except for begging for mercy, giving a guilty plea, and saying, please spare my life, because it's a death penalty case.
I can see him bargaining down the death penalty, taking a life in prison sentence, not in exchange for not having the state prosecute him for the capital crime.
It's a bizarre, just a bizarre series of crimes. And I think the fact that it began with a drug issue may explain some of this, although certainly not to that poor family's, the officer's family, Floyd East Jr.'s family, in mourning tonight.